Hi guys, welcome to another Laser Talk, and I actually changed this one up a bit. The movies I was going to talk about this week, I'm moving to next week, because Roger Moore died, probably best known as James Bond, and I thought this was a great opportunity to check out a few Laserdiscs I got in that big lot of over 100 free discs that I got earlier in the year. There were some great James Bond movies in there, and a few I'd never seen before, and it's time for a couple admissions and really talk about whether or not my opinion has changed with these movies. I've never seen a Roger Moore James Bond movie, and the reason why, the other admission here is that I've never been really a fan of Bond movies, and there's gonna be a lot of boo, terrible, oh my gosh, thumbs down, you're a horrible person. But to be honest, I've just never liked them. I've seen every Sean Connery movie, I've seen a couple of the Pierce Brosnan, I've seen one or two others over the years, but they've just never appealed to me, even growing up, and that's probably why I've missed, just offhand, the Roger Moore ones. Not in particular to avoid them, just never saw them before. To me, I look at it in sort of three ways: as a spy flick, as an action flick, and looking at the humorous elements. And you have to realize that I'm someone who loves slow-paced things. I love fast-paced action is great too. I love martial arts movies, big Jackie Chan fan, but I also really like a lot of film noir. I like a lot of slow-paced, kind of dry humor. My favorite comedy of all time is A Shot in the Dark. I just love that type of humor. I love watching a lot of silent films. So when I say that I always find Bond films somewhat boring, it's not that I'm only into like heavy, crazy action movies. I actually really like a lot of slow-paced stuff too. I like everything and anything from the 20s and up, but I've just never found them to be riveting or super entertaining. I've never gotten into them. And from the humor element, I've also not found again, not talking about Roger Moore ones yet till I bring these up, but aside from the few little tongue-in-cheek humor moments with the Sean Connery ones, I never found them too humorous either. So the action, I've never been too excited by. I've never been too overly excited by the gadgets. It was kind of cheesy, comic booky, not really sci-fi enough. As far as the spy elements, it really just didn't quite come together in any element for me. For me, every one is a little bit lacking, and the total package just never really appealed to me. But one thing that I'll say about the Bond franchise and why I think it has lasted so long is that overall, from the ones I've seen and now having seen some Roger Moore movies, they did a great job with every Bond being his own portrayal of the Bond character. I think this is something that would not have lasted long post Sean Connery if every actor afterwards was just doing their best Sean Connery Bond impersonation and trying to do that. I think the fact that the films have changed over time with each Bond and that actor's particular portrayal of Bond is part of what they've done really well, and why I think it's part of how they've been so successful is that every time you move into a new Bond or into a new decade, it caters more to that Bond, and that Bond, I think, from what I've seen, tends to fit very nicely within the decade of those films. I think it's changed a lot from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. It's changed with the times while also maintaining enough threads of what makes a Bond movie Bond that doesn't lose all the old school fans. I think that's the main element from what I've seen that I think makes it last so long, is it changes enough to make new fans, but not too much that it's going to alienate old fans. So looking at these Laserdisc releases of Roger Moore movies that I got from James Bond, they're all letterbox editions here, MGM. Nice gatefolds. I do like these releases. So these were pretty cool. So if I'm going to get some random Bond movies for free, really nice releases to get. Great Laserdisc packaging. And last one here. So we have Octopussy, going backwards in order here, Moonraker, and The Spy Who Loved Me. Now, looking at these three, my least favorite after watching them was Moonraker. For me, overall, Moonraker just, I think, stepped too far over the line in being a little too ridiculous. I did see an interview with Sean Connery a long time ago talking about his Bond versus Roger Moore's Bond, and he didn't outright say he thinks his Bond was better. He thinks his Bond was different in that his was more grounded in reality a bit, and over time the Bond movies, is particularly I think from what I've seen of Bond movies, the Roger Moore ones, have gone a little too over the top, a little too more, like they're more cartoonish, and I definitely agree with that. They're a little more cartoonish. The humor is a little more exaggerated. I think, again, I think that was actually a strong suit, and I think that's, from what I gathered from the interview that one that I saw, that Sean Connery was saying, that it was sort of in agreement with that idea that that's part of why it worked. It's not necessarily one's better than another, it's more personal opinion of which one you like more over time. And for me though, out of these three, Moonraker I think crossed the line a little bit. It became a little too absurd. It was a little more enjoyable. I think after watching these, one thing is I do want to go back and watch some more of them. I do have, I think I have 4 Sean Connery Bond movies, and I have one other one on LaserDisc that I got in the list. I think I have 5 more in that lot that I got, and I do want to go back and watch those and give the series a second chance and see if I do like it more, because as much as this was over the top and ridiculous, it was still more entertaining than I remember Bond movies being in general. The last one I watched, I forget which one it was, but one of the Pierce Brosnan ones I saw in theaters. The only one I've ever seen in theaters. I forget which one it was. But yeah, so entertaining, but a little too ridiculous for me, a little too over-the-top absurd. Next one would be The Spy Who Loved Me, and I think this one felt the most of these 3 tonally similar to the older James Bond movies, similar to the Sean Connery ones. Still was Roger Moore putting his own spin on the character, but out of the 3, I think it was the closest to that feeling, and I think that's part of what made me like a little bit more, but also I think part of why I didn't enjoy it quite as much as Octopussy, because this has more of a stamp of the Roger Moore James Bond. I think out of from these 3, I think this is the least Roger Moore. I think this is the least of him coming out of his shell and playing his own Bond. I think it's a little bit of his own spin, but not going the whole way to making a different Bond. And I didn't look it up, so I'm not sure this is correct, but I think, is this the first one where he was Bond? Yeah, again, let me know below, because I didn't look it up or anything. I'm just assumption that this is the first one where he was Bond. But again, a good one. I did enjoy, again, more than Moonraker, but definitely Octopussy was my favorite of the 3, because I think between this and Moonraker, this one still had a lot of that humor, if not more of that humor, but it wasn't quite as over the top. It was very tongue-in-cheek. It was kind of goofy, a lot of the humor, but it wasn't over the top and comical in the cartoonish sense. I found it to be a little bit funnier and a little less ridiculous, and I think it had a better balance overall between the 3. I think if you're looking for a slightly less ridiculous Bond, The Spy Who Loved Me I think is the better one overall, but to me Octopussy I think had a decent blend of the humor elements and the slightly unrealistic action set pieces, and to me visually I liked it the best too. I think especially when I went to India, I think overall there's a little bit more of an interesting variation in the set pieces, in the location pieces, than the other ones. I think, again, to me, as far as entertainment, The Spy Who Loved Me was the least exciting, the least interesting for me. It stood out the least, but Moonraker stood out a little bit more, sometimes for the wrong reasons. It was a little too ridiculous, and I think Octopussy, again, overall, the reason why I liked it, to me, it had the best balance of all those elements, and what I get from these is that I do want to go back again, as I said, and watch some of those old Bond movies. Maybe I'll like them better over time. Still wasn't super excited by these, but I did enjoy them a lot more than I thought I would going in. Definitely, I see the appeal more now. It's one of those, personally, I don't think I'm ever going to be a huge fan, but I understand more now why there are people that are huge fans of them, especially if you really enjoyed them growing up. That was the thing, it wasn't something I really grew up with Bond, and just kind of caught Sean Connery ones on TV and things over the years. But yeah, so these 3 here, Octopussy and Moonraker and The Spy Who Loved Me, got to re-experience some Bond and experience for the first time some Roger Moore Bond, and it's opened my eyes a little bit to giving the series another chance and going back and watching some Bond movies. And I'd love to know, absolutely, especially LaserDisc collectors, what are some of your favorite Bond movies and some of your favorite releases on LaserDisc? I know a lot of you LaserDisc collectors out there collect Bond movies, especially, I'm pretty sure Sam Hatch is close to having a complete worldwide collection of Bond movies on LaserDisc. Let me know what some of your favorites are, and I'll check them out because I want to go back and rewatch some of these, and I do want to have a really good release of them too. So if it's one I don't have in my collection, maybe I'll go ahead and watch it and then try and find the best version. So let me know absolutely below, what are your favorite James Bond movies, and what are some of your favorite Bond LaserDisc releases individually. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.